Estamos como siempre con el gusto de tener buenas noticias aquí en este programa en Padres en Acción, y es que pues las buenas noticias no siempre son las que leemos en el periódico, sino las que podemos encontrar en libros, porque es algo tal vez que no hemos hecho hace mucho tiempo, y es tomar un libro, empezar a hojear entre las páginas y empezar a ver lo que el autor nos ha traído como su inspiración y posiblemente refleje sobre nuestras propias vidas. Y esa es la parte que el día de hoy vamos a comentar con Larry y Cybill, quien nos están proponiendo en esta próxima temporada el lanzamiento de su libro, que tiene un contenido realmente muy fuerte y que relaciona a las familias y su problemática social en esta ciudad en la que todo pasa y le pasa todo a todo el mundo. Y el libro se llama 22222, las historias no contadas. Eso es en inglés, es un libro que será publicado en los próximos días en inglés, será su lanzamiento. Estaremos junto con ellos para celebrar esta gran ocasión en la que se pone de manifiesto justamente ese reflejo que propone la necesidad de vernos a nosotros mismos a través de los personajes que se han recreado en esta historia, el poder ver los errores que estamos cometiendo y las dinámicas extrañas que a veces caemos y que posiblemente nos llevan al fracaso de nuestras vidas en todos nuestros entornos, ¿no? En lo personal, en lo familiar, en lo profesional, en lo económico y pues a veces en toda esta preguntadera de qué es lo que estamos haciendo mal. Muchas veces estos libros en las que, por la narrativa que tienen ahora y la importancia que ahora los autores como Larry y Cybill nos traen este libro, pues vamos a encontrar posiblemente ciertas preguntas o ciertas respuestas de estos enigmas, pues en esperanza de que quienes nos escuchan tienen un buen inglés. Esta conversación que vamos a tener con Larry y Cybill, pues, la vamos a hacer en inglés. Esperamos que pues ya sepan inglés en esta ciudad, tienen que aprender un poquito. That's what I'm saying. At this time, let me introduce you guys. I was telling our audience that of the importance that it has to be like reading a book, catching the reflex of our society and the dynamics that we face in our everyday life, and our families or professions or finances or maybe our objectives in life sometimes get shortened just because we don't know. We're ignorant in many things. And books like yours, like 2222, the Untold Stories, gives us some light. Welcome, you guys, Cybill and Larry, and let's have this very cool conversation about this book you're putting out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dynamics of working hard, trying to fulfill some version of the American dream. And they don't leave any time to introspect, to look into their own lives, to see how they're living, to see maybe how their spouse is living, how they're raising their children, how they're behaving, how people are watching, how they behave, stuff like that.
Busy being ourselves, or this looking for our best version of ourselves. Usually that's what psychologists are looking for you when you go into their conversations. You gotta exhibit, or you gotta create the best version of yourself. But sometimes you're not getting to that. You're just destroying your life. And books like yours make you face that. Why don't you give us some, without burning your book? The computer has become a family member, and we listen to it, we believe in it, whatever it says, we take care of it. And sometimes it could be annoying just to learn from this little being that now has its own artificial intelligence, and it's starting to tell us stuff about how we should behave. And that might be a problem. But your book places the human side of all these lessons to be learned.
Problems differently. So, as Cybill mentioned, one of the couples deals with problems with infidelity, with drugs, with gambling, with overeating, with excess of everything.
Well, it seems to be part of our culture at this time, and it could be behaving like that and destroying our lives. Because we've seen on the television that doesn't matter what we eat, it's poisonous, and you're starting to get accustomed of listening how it's easy to be destroyed, and there's nothing that we can do about it.
Don't get us started on the food.
It's funny you said that, because that's pretty much our second book, which is part of this series.
It's because it's interesting, because they say you can't eat this, you can't eat that. This will burn your sugar. This is going to be bad for your liver. This is going to be bad for your whatever, right? And then when you go into the market and you see all these things, and you say, well, anything that I might want to eat from this place is going to be bad for me. Where can I go? What am I going to do?
Well, what we, as a couple, what we do is we're both vegans, so neither one of us eat the flesh of an animal, which is one of the things we do to take the power away from the food industry and put it back into our own hands.
Sometimes you lose a sense of what you're really eating, and in the past, our parents they would say, "No, just go ahead and drink from the
sink."
Yeah, from the sink. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when they have taught us that when they show us these scientific methods to analyze water in our homes, and we see that water is toxic in ways that in the past it wasn't. We
Right.
can't tell our kids to just go and drink from the, even washing your teeth or maybe getting showers in that water.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of unlearning, because like you mentioned, it's programming, right, on a television and the music that's played, and people have to get out of that way of learning and kind of go back to basics.
But who are we going to listen to?
Well, it's definitely not the politicians, that's for sure.
Because so far we've gotten to places where our own government tells us to have this medication not to get sick.
The food as medicine, or you'll eat medicine as food, right? And that saying's very true.
In respect of your book, there's a lot of dynamics that show how these people, the characters in your book, how they interact and the lessons they learn. Why don't you tell us without spoiling it?
A teacher, a school teacher, who's married, who's extremely wealthy from generational wealth. He goes to meet who he believes is a 12-year-old boy on the day of his son's christening. And it starts off like that. It starts off with him being nervous about meeting an underage boy and also fulfilling his obligations and duties as a husband and father.
Let's turn out in this day and age a problem to really behave as a grown-up. It's really turned out to be a hard thing to do.
It's amazing. One of the things that really is prevalent today, and it should have been all along, is sex trafficking and stuff like that. And our book does deal with that. It does deal with that issue, as uncomfortable as it might be.
This book that you've written touches all these very sensitive situations of life in the lives of these four characters that interact amongst themselves, and from whom we these lessons, or we it gets contrasted, so we can see their mistakes and how they might be close to our ways of living, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of exactly what we're trying to do. Just have people see how like they can learn from the book, right? Even though it's a fictional book, they could take away some lessons.
We got Rolando here that it's gonna bring his own from his generation. You know, all this. In the past, happiness was something else. The definition that we see of happiness at this time is if you got a good position in the social life, if you got enough money, that's gonna be good. That's not happiness.
Right.
Oh. We talk about that too.
I agree with that. That's why you see so many people buying their own little piece of property and farming their own land and growing their own food, because that's the definition of happiness. People want to simplify the definition of happiness. At least some people do.
Cybill, que han escrito un libro, ya van por el segundo libro, un libro donde hablan de los valores. What I'm saying in Spanish is that sadly the young people are not receiving the knowledge they need to survive in an ethical way. They are not getting values. It's a generation, me first, me second, me third, and they don't care about the common good. And if the children don't have values, what is going to promote is corruption. That's what happened in my native country, Ecuador, where everything is corruption everywhere, every place, and has become part of the culture. Because people are looking for what is convenient, but not what is right. And in the long run, you do things that is convenient, but they are not right. It brings problems. Society is in a spiral to the bottom of the barrel. In my native country, in Ecuador, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, most of the people from the countryside, very poor people, But now middle class people are immigrating here to the United States in an undocumented way, risking their own lives because what happened? The groups organized crime not only controls the jails, they have everything inside the jail. They have factories, they have guns, they have everything. But also they control the cities. Almost every working person, even small business people that sell food or sell something on the sidewalk, they need to pay a bribe every week or every 2 weeks or once a month in order to survive. Otherwise, these people will kill their families. About a month ago, we had a police officer in Quito, the capital. They stole his car. They demanded $10,000 to return it. And on top of that, he was supposed to pay every month a certain amount of money. They call it vaccine, that's vaccine against them. Otherwise, they will kill his family. And they had all the information about his family, where his children were born, everything. So there must be information that some people in the government gives them. Yeah, so it's very sad.
I think you're going to...
Sadly, if this great country, which has been a beacon of hope for the whole planet, that's why people struggle and risk their life to come to these shores, is becoming like Ecuador. I hope to be wrong, but we are becoming a banana republic if we don't stop it. That's why we need people like Larry and Cybill to bring hope again and to give knowledge to people to wake up before it's too late.
It's easier to do things the easy way.
Convenient.
Because, I'm sorry for the parents out there, but if your kid is the kind of kid that's selfish, it's only because that's how you raise them. 100% selfish parents will breed selfish children. Sorry.
On the combination of mom and dad.
Right. You have your child answering the phone in the house phone. Now, there are not many house phones. Everybody has a cell phone. But it used to be like, who is this? Oh, it's the landlord or the third person. Tell them I'm not here. The child learns that lying is convenient.
Oh, wow.
And then you tell them, or you smoke or you use drugs, or now weed is legal. But you tell your child not to smoke or not to use drugs. Well, my father and my mother, they're hypocrites. Yeah. He will do it.
Or you tell your kids to be faithful and they've seen you cheating your whole life. That could be another thing.
It's what we were speaking last time of this thing of do as I say, not as I do.
I mean the Catholic...
Double standards.
The Catholic Church.
The way to teach a child is with your example. That's the best way to teach. But we're becoming like Ecuador here, like a banana republic. What can you tell us about that, my friend?
Well, I think that in the quest to try to make things easier for people, they actually made things much harder because people can't fend for themselves. Because somebody might take your kids are overweight and they don't exercise because it's easier. Rather than put your kid in sports and actually make them do sports, it's easier to put them in front of a TV or a computer screen. It's much harder for them to go out and run every day and go to the gym every day and do those kind of things.
It's a positive self-fulfilling loophole that one feeds the other and society starts going down slowly to a spiral, and it's very bad because at least we stop it or we hit the barrel and then bounce back. I don't know what is going to happen.
Well, how do you judge a person? By the fruits, by their fruits, right?
By their actions.
So if you're, like we were talking about before, if your kid is selfish and greedy, well, then that just means that you're probably selfish and greedy also, and they learn that.
You didn't do your job. Right?
Yeah, and that's your fruits, right? There are plenty of wealthy people that I know personally, and they're not happy people at all.
The children are all crooked.
You said that your characters are vicious, are cruel sometimes, but in the in how the book explains itself, they go through all these challenges that make them see themselves as they are, and the golden question, without trying to spoil your book. Do you believe that there is a chance that people might change and improve their lives? And this effort that you're doing around portraying these characters that are most likely in our society and are part of the people that we know? Because we can recommend books like that to people that we know.
It's a great question. Yes, I do believe people could change. I do believe people could come around, so to speak, but it's hard to introspect, and it's hard to say, a sinner, I'm a cheater, I am a liar, I'm greedy. Those things are hard to say. It's much easier to continue on in the status quo and to act like you're all that, especially if you have some money. But it's really hard if you have some money to say, I have a lot of money, but I have tons of character flaws. There's a lot wrong with me. And the money won't change that, but your attitude and your willingness and desire might change that.
But it doesn't. But perfection is the enemy of everything at the same time.
Perfection for us earthlings, for us mortals, is an impossibility. That's God. That's perfection. But for us,
Interesante lo que están. We can judge parents by the children, the fruits of the labor. But what I would add is that a lot of parents are ignorant. They do send the children to public schools who are not going to educate them, but rather dumb them down and give them wrong values. Because the first thing the public school do is empower the children against the parents. The parents don't have the power to discipline them anymore, and if they do, they get in jail. The children are taken away and put in foster care, where they prepare them to the prison industrial complex. 75% of all the children who are kidnapped by the so-called child protective services and in jail. That's one point. Second thing is that a lot of the parents buy them video games, and video games produce two problems. First, the video game overstimulates the brain, and it comes to a point where the brain needs more stimulation because it got bored with the video game, and drugs are the door to more stimulation, and that's dead end. I mean, it's a path of self-destruction. And second, the values that video games give them are the wrong values: violence, sex, and not only that, but totally wrong values. One of the video games who was most popular a while ago, Grand Auto Theft, where they throw a woman to the floor and they start kicking her on the head.
Oh,
and the more you kick her on the head, the more points you get. What is that message? Jesus Christ. And also it gives you a false vision of reality, because you press a button and you get rewards. You press another button and you kill your enemy. But that's not life without. So young people are hooked into this instant gratification when you don't see the results of your actions farther down. You may like to punch somebody on the face, but you may lose your job, you may go to jail. But young people don't think about the consequences of actions. I think that's a big problem.
I agree with that, but that also goes to, could be a personality problem, but it could also go back to parenting as well. If they didn't learn proper values by being reprimanded by their parents without physical,
without the parents going to jail,
right?
Like they do here.
If you know how to raise a kid, you know that money has nothing to do with raising a kid. The only thing that matters is love, is time, is being able to be there for them and let them know what's right and wrong and guide them as best as you can. That's it.
I agree with you, but I'd like to add something from my point of view, that we need to avoid blind love. We need to use intelligent love, because a lot of people do blindly. Let's say you have a teenager who wants money. What is the money for? Is that to buy wheat? Is that to go and buy alcohol? What are you going to use the money for? Love needs to be intelligence. And a lot of people use blind love, which is not convenient and sometimes could be self-destructive. I think we need to educate the parents too, because I advocate not sending your children to public schools, at least in New York City. They will come dumb, they don't know anything, they are very ignorant, they are lazy, and they are disrespectful of the parents. That's what public schools produce. Not only that, but on top of that, lately they are promoting the gay and lesbian agenda in the children, which I think is wrong too, because that should be a choice for the parents about sex education. So sending your children to public schools is a very dangerous thing.
There are ways that people change. Sometimes I've heard that when you divorce, it's like losing a very important member of your family. These sad situations are the ones that make you change your behavior. You know, you've been destructive until you face this impossible thing, which is death. That's one of the ways, right? In your book, would you say that you really need to be hit by that kind of of a thing to look at yourself in your life and change yourself? It's going to take a long time to hold. If it's just on your willpower, you might not succeed.
Definitely does not come overnight, especially for the characters in the book. As I mentioned previously, John, one of the main characters in the book, John's father was in prison when he was 13. And it doesn't really hit him then as much as it does when he gets older, when he gets involved in relationships where he has problems with them. And he gets involved in drug addiction. And ultimately he goes for help. And that those drug addictions are overcome and those feelings are dealt with accordingly, but he does change.
I believe that the biggest change can come from your soul. It may come a point that her soul tells you need to stop, because I've seen people who have gone to treatments and they come back to the same environment and then go back again to the drugs. I think the soul needs to tell you, you need to change. We need the spiritual part.
And how far will you go? Are you going to go give up your soul? Because that's the extent that people, the rock bottom that you guys are talking about. To what extent are you going to go? You're going to keep harming yourself. You're going to keep beating yourself down. You're going to keep just destroying yourself.
And it brings me to a point. I'm not a believer in conspiracy theories, but I see a lot of videos that those so-called famous stars, personalities, I don't know, Beyond and all those singers and actors, they have sold their soul to whoever negative force, because they do promote wrong values. And apparently because of that, they promote them, they make them billionaires. I don't know if there's any truth to that beyond, I don't know, but I found it very suspicious.
Oh, there are lots of celebrities that make signs of the devil to their fans on purpose. I know that's not a popular term, but the world is a constant battle between good and evil. Whether somebody believes in God or not, it doesn't matter. There's a battle between good and evil constantly.
For the minds of the people, for the souls of the people.
For everything.
Yeah, they start with the body, then the mind, and they go for the soul.
That battle starts from conception, and it ends after. It never ends, actually. It never ends.